Hey guys, Dr. Hill here. I've got something that I've been asked several times today, and I wanted to follow up with you on this, and it's about the Hashimoto's thyroiditis diet. I'm having a lot of people that are coming in and that are being diagnosed with elevated thyroid antibodies, and the question is, well, what can I do about this? It seems that there's a lot of frustration with just being recommended a medication, and most people know that while that medication may be necessary to help them start to begin to feel better, at the end of the day, that's really not going to be sufficient to address the Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Now, it's important to recognize when it comes to Hashimoto's that Hashimoto's as an autoimmune condition is pretty complicated. There's a lot of factors that go into autoimmune conditions. It's not just one thing that you have to address to begin to get your health back with these conditions. So with that in mind, just taking a medication is really not going to be the ideal. Again, you may need it, but it's not going to fix the problem here. So as it relates to trying to find a more natural solution, if you will, obviously diet becomes a consideration for that. So with that said, what would an ideal Hashimoto's thyroiditis diet look like? First thing we have to consider on this is what to give up. Now, believe me guys, I understand you don't want to give up foods. But when it comes to getting your health back, sometimes that's just necessary. You just have to do it. Now, with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, there are some correlations with this condition with specific foods. So, for example, gluten is highly implicated in this, as well as Hashimoto's has also been seen with type 1 diabetes. So, if gluten's a factor, that means there's probably a link to celiac disease. So, one of the food categories that absolutely has to come out of your diet is going to be grains, and specifically gluten-containing grains. Now, with that said, you shouldn't be consuming dairy either. And the reason why is if type 1 diabetes is also linked to Hashimoto's thyroiditis, then we have to keep in mind that type 1 diabetes also has a strong link to milk allergies. And there is some association with milk and gluten being real closely related to each other. So if you're consuming gluten and you're consuming dairy, you're probably going to end up with a high propensity towards Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So unfortunately, you have to give those two foods up in your diet and get those out. Now that we've talked about what foods, the predominant foods to take out, and I'll show you in a minute how to make that even more specific. But now that we've talked about the specific foods to get out, what are the specific foods that we want to take in? We want to take in foods that are going to support the gut. Again, Hashimoto's thyroiditis is an autoimmune condition. So anytime we have autoimmune dysfunction, we have some degree of gut dysfunction associated with that. So we want to take in foods that are going to support the gut. Those particular foods are going to be ones that are going to be high in fiber. The bacteria in our gut love good, consistent fiber consumption. So predominantly your vegetables and your fruits, and notice in that I said vegetables first, with putting more emphasis on that category versus fruits. Now, with that also being said, we want to consume foods that are going to be high in color, that are going to have a lot of color to them, that are going to be very high in antioxidants. Those antioxidants are the anti-inflammatory, immune-supporting components of food, and those are also going to be the things that are going to help change our environment in our GI tract, that are going to help the probiotics, which helps regulate the immune function, but those nutrients are also going to directly regulate immune function also. And that's important when it comes to Hashimoto's thyroiditis. If you can't get the immune system under control, you're not going to do a good job at controlling this. Lastly, as simple as I can make it, you should be consuming foods that are on the paleo diet, and you should be consuming those foods on a rotational basis, not consuming the same food all the time, but rather consuming a variety of foods that are predominantly from the plant categories, with the vegetables and the fruits being at the top of the list, but then also consuming in good quality meats that are, of course, grass-fed, and as well as good healthy fats. That's predominantly what you're going to be looking for as far as what to eat. Now, I promised a little bit earlier that I would give you an idea of how to make this more specific to you. And when it comes down to really finding your specific Hashimoto's thyroiditis diet, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to look at some testing, and that testing really requires two different categories of assessment. The first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to do some type of sensitivity testing, and then secondarily you're going to need to do some type of allergy testing. And I don't say secondarily to say that one's more important than the other, because they're both important. As a matter of fact, I just literally reviewed a study this morning relating rheumatoid arthritis, again, another autoimmune condition, directly to egg allergies and to milk allergies, actually both of them, to egg and to milk allergy. So we want to find out specifically what your needs are by looking at both an allergy and a sensitivity, the immediate response from the immune system and the delayed response for the immune system. Sometimes even the best foods, some of the foods that we always consider to be healthy, may be a problem food for you and maybe, again, exacerbating that autoimmune response. So you want to try to get that food out of your diet, but you're not going to do that by just guessing. You have to specifically know what those food reactions are for you. So guys, I hope this really helps. If you're struggling with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, by all means, take to heart what I've said here, because hands down, these are the things that consistently show up. Get the gluten out, get the dairy out, get on a paleo diet, and get some testing done so you can find out what your specific needs are. Thanks for taking the time to listen. I'm Dr. Arland Hill.